Let's talk about debt reduction. We talk a lot about with clients, like what kind of debt do you have? And then where do we put additional funds to what makes the most sense? What do we pay down first?
Welcome to the Live Greater View, a financial planning podcast produced by VLP Financial Advisors that discusses life, money, and perspective. We help clients live their best life at every stage through our VLP Live Greater partnership process. Thank you for tuning in.
Well, welcome back. This is a good topic for the spring. Now, we got Dan. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
I'm Dan Lash. I'm a CFP and AIF. CFP, Certified Financial Planner, AIF, Accredited Investment Fiduciary. Been with the firm for 26 years.
Ooh, congratulations.
So I'm the second longest tenured full-time employee.
Not full-time.
Actually,
no, it's me.
I'm the first longest full-time, I don't know. Anyway, the founding...
He's been here a long time.
Yeah, I came to work with the founding partner a long, long time ago. So,
yeah. And I'm Rose Price, also a CFP and AIF. I'm actually the second longest full-time employee because Dan was a 1099 before.
It's a technical issue.
But anyway, so let's talk about today's topic.
Sure.
Pretty timely. This is the time of year, maybe the snow's starting to melt, not be around anymore. We had a little bit of snow, but spring cleaning. So people get inspired to start cleaning up around the house, and we're talking about financial spring cleaning.
Yeah. Well, you need to look at, did you make any goals for this particular year, or did you sit down at the end of last year and say, okay, here's what I'm going to get done in 2025. Yeah. Am I going to create my spending plan, which we prefer over the word budget?
Yep.
And have you created the plan? Are you sticking to it? Are you finding any issues that are coming along that you hadn't expected? And then did anything change in your life? Yep.
Good time to start doing that. It's kind of taking stock of where things are, right?
Yep.
If you did make that spending plan and budget, are you on track? And there's a lot of tools out there that can help us now, certainly with AI and automation, where you can say, hey, here's what my budget is. And you can download in your bank account, credit card information and see, hey, am I really on track? I used to do this in Mint, now Mint's Rocket Money, I think it is. I always used to joke with the kids is my Mint, I'd have what we could spend on eating out. And unfortunately, Dan and I always eat out at lunch. So sometimes the budget got a little blown. But I get every Friday at like 4, I get where my budget is and what I spent. And I'd be like, oh, looks like we're not eating out. No pizza today, kids. But, so again, it's a great time to kind of figure out what things look like and take stock of where things are.
Yeah, and I think most people focus on the spend side of it. Yeah. While we refer to it as a spending plan, you're basically accounting for where all of the money net of taxes.
Yep.
That's a whole other topic we can sort of spin into. Net after those taxes are withheld, what are you saving?
Yep, that's a big key point.
Right.
Yeah.
So and then there's the tax issue of, well, did I get a bunch of taxes back last year because I gave the government too much money? Should I be adjusting my tax withholdings for this calendar year?
Yep.
Or did I owe a lot and I wasn't very happy about it in 2024 for 23 taxes?
Yep.
But you may have done some of that along the way in the last calendar year.
Yeah, so really it's kind of just getting that start. Kind of like if, at the beginning of the year, everybody gets their gym membership. But are you really using it?
Right.
So we all have ideas of I'm going to save more, lose weight,
get in
shape, all the other things we go through, eat better, those types of things. But one of the things we talk with clients is, okay, let's talk about what your financial health is. Because we know one of the leading stress points is money. So if not having a handle and grasp on where am I spending? What is my spending plan? Am I on track, off track? And let's face it, we all know, life throws you a curveball. But if you don't have a spending plan, then it's harder to make some adjustments and, have to pivot when you have these things come up.
Yeah, the plan's, the most crucial part of it.
Yep.
Most people aren't successful without having a plan. And whatever it is that you're going to run a marathon, you just don't get up that morning and go, all right, I'm going for a run. I think I've mentioned that in a past podcast. So we're, fully focused on plan
yep.
for these major life events that will likely come to pass.
Yes.
Right? Retirement, kids going to college, my car getting old and needing to be replaced.
Yep.
All these things
house,
we sort of
maintenance, all those things.
We see them coming. And there's lots of things you can't prepare for.
Right.
But that's why you have emergency funds, and hence that should be in your plan as well, of how much money do I have in my emergency fund? Did I use any of it last year? And I need to build that back up.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So spending plan key. So that's always one of the first things we start with clients. But some of the other things and topics coming up is, going paperless, leading right into that spring cleaning. How many of us still have paper and tax returns and the kids' school project and the kids, now live in another state, sitting around? And a lot of concern is what personal information you have sitting out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's trying to simplify your life.
Yep.
Right. So you're going, I got to keep track of all this paper and stuff. And you go, okay, well, let's just categorize it, electronically, and simplify things. Did something happen in your life and you need to adjust?
Yeah.
Beneficiaries.
100%. That's
right?
one of the big ones we see. Yeah.
Right. People go, I got married, and that's fantastic. But is your ex-husband
still
your beneficiary of your account?
Yeah.
And then, hey, I have 4 401k plans with 4 different logins, and I don't actively go in and look at what's going on with each one. I prioritize it based on which one's worth more.
Right.
And then that means, the one that has less money is just getting nothing. No, you're not overseeing it and you're not looking at it. Why not consolidate those and simplify your life as well?
Yeah, and that's one we see a lot when clients come in where they've left, and it's common now to have several different employers.
Sure.
People work 2, 3, 4 years, 10, 15 years, make a job change, and they leave that plan there because you have to do something to get it to move, right? Consolidation doesn't happen because you say consolidate. But then, you've seen it where people come in and forgot they even had a 401k. I mean, you had a client that you found like a multi.
Yeah, it was a few $100,000, and
that they forgot they had
from like the 1990s. I was like, how do you not know about this? Well, I just forgot.
Well, because what can happen is, you can't control, the plan sponsor can change providers.
Sure.
So you could have been with Fidelity, your current plan's with Fidelity, but that plan moves from Fidelity to Principal or Empower, and you forget. You forgot to log in.
Right.
You were busy. So those things happen. So it's key to kind of make sure you're taking stock of what were all my assets last year and where are they this year?
Right.
And, do you have all the logins and information? And interestingly, just yesterday, I got a call from a referral to your point about beneficiaries, remarried. They got married at 50. He passed away. The children of his first marriage were the beneficiaries on his life insurance policy. It was never updated. The ex-wife was the beneficiary of his retirement account, and they have a child together. And now, she has a pension, trying to get everything through OPM. Mess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So certainly when you have these life changes and life events, that's something we do with clients we meet every year is where all the accounts that we're managing, the accounts that you have outside, who are the beneficiaries. These are key things that we talk with clients about. Let's just take stock. And inevitably you always have a client go, oh, that person died, or I'm not talking to that person, or I changed my will. These are the things that you got to make sure that you're staying on top on.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, once you go, okay, I've updated my beneficiaries and everything's in line with where I am today. You go, okay, well, has your contribution rate changed?
Yes.
Right? And so you go, you've been putting away 10% into your 401k, hopefully at least 10% for years. And you go, well, you've gotten paid slightly more. Why haven't you just contributed slightly more every single year?
And the limits go up.
Yeah.
Are you maxing out? Are you taking advantage of the taxes, tax deduction if you're doing traditional?
23,500 this year, right? And then an additional 7,500 if you're over age 50.
And if you're 60 to 63, well, that's a whole different.
They created another group of old people. It's ageism, quite frankly, but you have a different catch-up contribution amount. It's 11,750.
Yeah, and it's 100 and some percent of the 7,500, but there's limits.
But only for ages 60 to 63.
For 64, you're gone. You're out. Back to 7,500.
59, no.
Yeah.
So, they just make it even more confusing for people to figure that stuff out. So obviously the thought process behind that when they came up with that rule was to try to get people who hadn't saved as much as
you started late.
Yeah. to be able to pile more money into their 401k plan.
Yeah.
So
that's a key. And, in the auto savings, this is a conversation we have a lot with clients and when we're out with 401k participants is, I kind of like to use the analogy of, certainly on the 401k, that money comes out of your paycheck before you can see it, before you can spend it.
Yep.
And it's out of sight, out of mind. And in most plans now have the ability to allow you to increase it 1% on a certain day every year or whenever, you can line that up with when you potentially get pay increases, maybe, you pay off an expense, those types of things. So, those are key because people don't really miss 1% or 2% each year, right?
Sure.
I tell them like, hey, it's the difference of maybe not going to Starbucks every day. You go 4 days. Or 3.
Starbucks gets a bad rap.
No, you're right.
Everybody says the Starbucks
Out to eat.
thing. Out to eat. Clothes. Whatever
it is. Yeah.
You have to be willing to say, well, I'm willing to forego something today, so I can have options in the future.
Yeah.
And that's partly why you're creating these plans from a spending perspective of going, okay, what are the things that I need to do in order to get to what my goal is? Typically, I don't want to work for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And so you need to stay on top of those things.
Yes.
Just blindly ignoring it and say, oh, everything will be fine. You go, well, you'll get to a certain age and you'll be thinking more about retirement. And then you meet somebody like us and they go, everything ain't quite fine.
Right.
Because you weren't doing some of these things. So we need to get more
diligent
about
yeah.
Making sure that you're sticking to it. Don't focus so much. I see a lot of articles about what did you do in the past and how much money should you have saved at this age.
Oh, don't worry about that. Yeah.
Focusing on the things that we could have done in the past is not going to help us.
Right.
We should learn from them.
Yes.
And then move forward.
Yeah, and I think the big misnomer about that is you'll get a call or you'll talk to someone who goes like, how much money should I have saved at age 50? And I go, I don't know. What's your spending plan?
Right.
How much do you spend? If you spend $200,000, but this person spends $100,000, you need drastically different amounts of money saved.
Yes.
Because you have different lifestyles. And that used to be the old commercials. You see them walk around with their number. And you're like, okay, well,
what's
your
number?
What's your number?
Yeah. I think that was ING, right?
It was, yeah, back in the day. So it's a great opportunity to kind of take stock of what are you saving, how much of your income are you putting away, and I think the other thing is where is the money going, right? What buckets is that going into? Are you doing traditional 401k, so it's after tax, you're gonna have to pay tax at some point? Are you utilizing Roth? Are you putting money into an individual or joint investment account, which is going to be taxed differently? There's all these different factors. It's not just that automatic, hey, I'm putting money here. We have conversations all the time. We'll look at someone and go, hey, you're going to end up having a multi-million-dollar IRA that's going to require you these big distributions. Yes, you're going to be in the same or higher tax bracket in retirement. Maybe we need to do, Roth. Maybe we need to switch things up. We've even had conversations where we said, maybe we need to pare back the 401k because you don't have a Roth option and do some more over here because you don't have money if something drastic comes that's not going to have tax implications.
Sure.
So it's looking at not only how much you're saving, but where you're saving.
Yeah, and then the spring cleanup is, all right, I've looked at all those things. You go, okay, well, now have you looked at the actual underlying investments that you're putting your money into?
Yes.
Right?
That's a big one.
2023, 2024 were fantastic years for big tech.
Yeah.
Made 30, 35, 40%.
Depending on where.
What you invested
some
in.
are over 100%.
Yeah. And you go, okay, is that going to continue forever going forward? I don't think so.
No.
And am I overly invested in those areas? So now I have more risk than I did at the beginning of the year. And should I look at maybe paring back some of that and moving some into some investments that in the last 2 years or 3 or 4 or 5 years haven't looked as good, but everything moves in a cycle.
Right.
And you go, look, maybe you should own some international stocks because you got zero. And people will look at how they've done the last 5 years and go, why would I own that? Because if you look at 2000 through 2010, you wouldn't have said that.
Right.
So, everything moves in a cycle. So you just want to, so you sort of have to get a little bit deeper. And this is when people start glazing over. They're hearing us talk about, I got to do this, I got to do this, and then I got to go do that.
It's time to go to Starbucks.
Yeah, it's just easier to not do it.
Yeah.
It's like anything.
Or maybe you just pass Starbucks and go to the,
right.
Maybe it's cocktail hour.
So that's part of the reason why people go, well, if they have never used a financial advisor,
Right.
what do you do, right?
Besides talk.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Do podcasts.
We do podcasts.
We're doing all these things. We're trying to hold you accountable because we can't do your budget. We can do it with you, but you're the one spending the money. We don't have control over where you spend your dollars. And so having that person who's taking care of things for you or helping you manage those things is what we do.
Right.
It's not just, let's go in and invest money. That is one concept, but that's usually when you tell somebody, they ask you what you do for a living, you say, I'm a financial planner. They go, what do you think stock market? You're like, I don't know. I look at
It's going to go up, it's going to go down.
Yeah, sideways, but what about all these other things in your life?
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of the key. It's, you made a good point. 23 and 24 were phenomenal years for tech stocks. And if you owned any of them, what they consider the Magnificent Seven, you're going, well, why would I own anything else? But we look back at the decades, those stocks that led typically aren't the leaders the next 10 years.
Yep.
Because it's all a function of earnings and your price and they look expensive by historical standards. If you look at the PE ratio, where to your point, international value stocks, they're looking pretty attractive. So it's probably a good time. It's a good time to say, take some of these gains, let me lock in some of these gains and let me rebalance. And then where do you put those? That's a good opportunity to say, hey, here's what I have. Here's what I'm saving money. Does that make sense? Are the buckets right? Tax equivalent, non-tax, all those things. And then what is in each of those buckets? Because even those, they have different tax implications where they're held.
Sure.
So you want to be cognizant of, what do you own in here that is going to be taxable now in your joint and individual account and
right.
Same thing.
And we're just talking about the last 2 years, but now you're 2 years closer to whatever that saving goal was for.
Yeah.
And can you take the same amount of risk that you were even 2 years ago?
Yep.
Because you go, well, now I have a shorter runway until I like to accomplish that goal. And if my investment were going to go down substantially, is that going to affect my ability to accomplish that goal?
Yep.
And you go, okay. And there's some people look at it two ways. We're probably obviously the more conservative way of saying, yeah, we think you should get more conservative. And others that we meet with will say, I'm trying to be as aggressive as I can because I only have 5 years till retirement. I go, because you want to make lots of money and you think you're going to make lots of money. But what if it goes in the other direction?
Right.
You have to work 5 more years longer than you had planned for.
Yeah.
How do you think of that?
Yeah, we spend a lot of time being devil's advocate.
Sure.
Because we have to think of the downside. We have to think of what the goals are and how you're going to get there, and what assets and resources you have to help you get there, and when do you take gains, and because then there's a tax. There's going to be some type of tax attached to that, certainly in your individual joint accounts.
And we bring this up. It's timely, but it's also. This is the time of year where people are looking at all their stuff because they got to pull all that together for their taxes.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? And so they're going, well, so on top of the taxes I have to do, whether they're doing it themselves or hiring somebody else, you want me to do this stuff too?
Right.
You go, well, it should be easier because you're getting all your 1099s, you're looking at your statements,
right.
You're looking at all those things. Why not just spend another weekend after you spent the one weekend getting ready for taxes, go to the next weekend and go, okay.
Sound like 2 terrible weekends in a row.
It could, it may not be that fun. I probably wouldn't suggest it on, Super Bowl Sunday evening, but
no.
if you don't care about the Super Bowl, you go, well, maybe I'll do it that time. Nobody's around to bug me because they're all watching the Super Bowl.
And that's a good point. Like in taxes, you alluded to it earlier. Are you withholding enough? Things have changed. You sold something. Maybe you're going to have an extra tax bill this year that you weren't expecting.
Yep.
And there's changes. Sometimes we haven't really seen a big change in the tax law, but we could next year. So you'll have to plan for, are my withholdings going to be enough? What are those adjustments going to impact me? Because that'll also affect all your spending plan. It'll affect the cash you're going to have available for that plan. So that's always some key pieces. And then, another thing we usually talk, is just have clients check their credit report. It's interesting. sometimes things pop up that, if they don't have monitoring, if they don't have their credit locked, we typically recommend clients to lock their credit. If you don't have notifications, hey, I myself this year got a notification I was opening a new Capital One credit card that I did not apply for. But I was able to quickly call and get it shut down because I just had it open for a small period. So it's things like that. If I didn't have the alerts, someone else would be probably out there with my new Capital One card.
Yeah, my credit's it's been frozen for years. And it's just a way to protect against anybody else trying to get credit under my name.
Yeah.
So you just have to realize that when you go out and purchase anything that you're going to finance.
Unlock your credit, yeah.
Finance, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to go buy a car, they're like, oh, we need to see your credit. You go, okay, well, I'll unlock it for a period of time, get it done. But the vast majority of people aren't applying for credit cards all the time.
Correct.
Right? They're not buying new cars constantly. So you probably know when these things come up, and having that credit freeze or lock, whatever you want to refer to it as, that just is protecting you against nefarious people, individuals that may go, hey, here's a simple way for me to get some money.
And we see a lot of it on the rise. We see lots of clients who've gotten their bank accounts compromised. Things happen. It does happen, but there's just another way. It's a good time to, again, just take stock of where things are. Is everything on your credit report accurate?
That's the bigger thing.
Because, things get, credit agencies are human. So things get on there by mistake. Things get on there because there's been fraud. There's all kinds of different scenarios. So it's just a good time, again, while you're going through these checks to say, okay, let me just do the credit report check.
Let me just double check it. Make sure everything seems accurate as to the best of my knowledge.
Yeah. Because sometimes, you might have paid something off and they didn't report that you paid it off. So there's things like that, So it's just a good time to do that stock. Yep. Let's talk about debt reduction. So that's a big thing. We talk to clients a lot about, so certainly if they're, if we're talking about their spending plan in retirement, is what kind of debt do we want to have when you get to that point? And what debt do you have now? And, is there a plan to want to pay off earlier? A lot of clients who refinanced or bought houses, 5 years ago, they're not moving because they're, or they want to move, but they're got a 2.2% mortgage or 3%. Those are typically where you don't need to pay that off because if you can earn more in the market. But student loan debt, credit card debt, with interest rates going up, the average card carrying a debt there's costing you 17% or more. So it's, we talk a lot about with clients, what kind of debt do you have? And then where do we put additional funds to what makes the most sense? What do we pay down first?
Right. And that's just part of that spending plan, right?
Yeah.
It's another line item of, okay, I have to pay this. You go, okay, well, do you pay that down faster with the cash flow that you were going to put into your emergency account? Because your emergency account's going to earn you 3 or 4%.
Yep.
And the credit card's earning you 17.
Charging you.
So right.
Yeah.
Charging you. You don't get it.
Wishy for earning.
So you go, look, you're better off putting that, and then you free up that cash once you have it paid off. Let's say in a year or 2 or 3, you go, okay, now I've freed up that cash flow. Let me start doing something with it. But it's not affecting your day-to-day life.
Right.
You're just taking the cash flow and putting it into a different bucket, and hopefully it's a bucket that's yours and not somebody else's.
Yeah.
So avoid credit cards as much as you can. They're
unless you're paying it off monthly.
Right. It's integrated in everything that we do, but the studies have shown that if you pay with cash, not that every place will take it, even though they legally have to.
Yeah, the schools don't anymore. You go to your kids' basketball game,
says
concessions.
Legal
it does,
tender
but
on
they
it.
say, no cash.
But in any case, if you look at people who spend cash as opposed to just swipe, they're more conscious about what they're spending.
Yeah.
But young people like my kids, they hate cash.
Right.
It's burdensome. They're like, hey, can you
Can you Venmo me?
Yeah, can you Venmo me some money? Because I'm just going to swipe it. And, debit cards are just scary.
Yeah.
Credit cards aren't as bad because you at least can contest certain things. If they happen with a debit card, it's very hard to contest it, and it comes right straight out of your bank account.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but to get back to what you were mentioning, you certainly should be looking at that periodically. Don't worry yourself over it, where you're looking at it every single month. How often do you need to access your credit?
Right. No, yeah, I think once a year is probably a good time. Certainly if you have the credit lock and the alerts on, once a year is certainly more than enough that you would need. But it's also just a good time because things can get on there. You might not get an alert about an account, or you paid something off and it didn't get updated. You wouldn't know that. You don't usually get those. Sometimes you get those alerts. It just depends on the credit agency.
Yeah, they don't send you congratulations. Congratulations. You don't owe us any more money.
Yeah, no. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
Like a big sign.
Yeah.
Yeah. We jump out at you. All right. So let's recap. So really, what we're talking about is kind of that spring cleaning. Talk about your spending plan.
Yep.
Checking your credit, checking to see how much you're saving, checking to see where you're saving, what investments are in those type of accounts. Do they make sense? Is it a good time to kind of recap and take some gains and do some repositioning in there? Evaluate your 401k. How much are you putting in? Are you getting the full contribution? Are you getting the full match? That's when we talk with clients a lot. They go, oh, I'm putting in 4%, and we found out the company's matching 6%. They're like, well, wait a minute, you're giving up free money.
Right.
So that's a good opportunity to, take stock and say, look, you can pick up some more investments. You're getting free money from the company. One of the things I think I just said in the last one of our other podcasts, no company end of the year goes, hey, you didn't get the full match. Here's a bonus. We don't see that.
Rarely. They call it a true-up contribution, and there's some plans out there that do it, but not the vast majority that I've seen are not doing those.
Yeah, they're far and few between.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then, take stock of where everything is. Do you have multiple retirement accounts out there? Maybe you got an inheritance. Are they at all different companies? Does it make sense to start that consolidation process?
Yep.
Because people lose track of things, even when it's electronic, and you lose your password. And maybe it's a good time to check your passwords too.
Yeah. So it's probably easier for that really well organized person.
Yeah.
For anybody who's listening who knows they're not necessarily a really well organized person, this may be a bit more challenging for them.
Yes.
Because finding these things and doing and not being organized, just not wanting to delve that way, it could be more uncomfortable.
Yes.
Because you go, it's just easier for me to just sort of wing it. And some people, that would drive them crazy.
Yeah.
Right? They'd go, I can't do that. No, it has to be,
Dan's talking about me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dan will wing it. Yeah.
Well,
we have different styles.
Yeah. I should be better at some of the things that I do, but all of us can be. So for those people who go, you're sitting here saying you should do all these things.
Right.
I know you're thinking to yourself, I don't want to do that. But
there's resources. There's people.
You could hire people.
Yeah.
There's daily money managers that could help with those things.
Yeah.
People who just do bill pay and
Your financial planner will help you get through. We do a lot of this.
Right.
Sometimes all of it
Right.
with clients. Yeah.
And so you go, if I don't think I'm going to be very good at doing this because I dislike it so much.
Yeah.
Then hire somebody. If you can.
Just like mowing my lawn.
Or phone, yeah. Or find resources, because there's lots of resources available, as you've mentioned. And try to leverage those resources to help you so that you can still continue to accomplish the things that you're going to need to.
Yeah.
Time's passing by, and we're going to want to accomplish certain goals.
One thing we should also mention is, you don't have to pay for a credit report. There is the website annualcreditreport.com, which is
I think it's .gov or .org or is it .com?
I think it's .com.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Sorry.
Annual Credit Report. It's the only one. It says on the website it's the one that's been sanctioned by the government.
Right. The federal government requires once a year that all three have to provide that.
Yeah.
So if you see these things on on TV, get your credit report. We can all get that. You don't have to pay anybody for it.
Right. You can get your credit report. If you want your score, they can charge you for your score.
Right.
That's the one thing they can. But at annualcreditreport.com, you can get all three agencies once a year. Again, if you like this video, subscribe to our podcast and stay up for our latest content. It's available through YouTube and Spotify and some of the other areas. You want to speak to an advisor? Go to VLPFA.com. We've got all of our advisors lists there. You can see their calendars and request a meeting.
Yeah, schedule a meeting anytime. And I just want to say thank you for our clients and other people who've sent us feedback on our podcast to sort of help us. It's really cool to see that people are watching, and they're watching so much that they go, hey, I got some ideas of things that you guys should consider talking about.
Hey, we're trying to get better. So anyway, and shout out to Melissa, our director, who keeps us on par and makes us look better. I hope.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you could tell us, and maybe we'll get some of that in the feedback. Thanks again, and thanks for joining us. We look forward to seeing you on our next podcast.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Live Greater View. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Spotify and recommend our podcast to family and friends. To learn more about VLP Financial Advisors, please check out our website at vlpfa.com. Thanks again.
And now for our necessary disclosures. Securities and advisor services offered through Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC, member FINRA SIPC, a broker-dealer and registered investment advisor. All investing involves risk, including the possible loss of principal. There is no assurance that any investment strategy will be successful. The views stated in this podcast are not necessarily the opinion of Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC, and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned. Due to the volatility with the markets mentioned, opinions are subject to change without notice. Information is based on sources believed to be reliable. However, their accuracy or completeness cannot be guaranteed. Past performance does not guarantee future results.